That sounded a little off.
Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. And I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order for the date of Tuesday, June 25th, 2024. And just for the record, Councilman Zigerman will be joining us shortly. We'll transition now into the invocation. And as you can see tonight, we are dressed down, as you can see. So we're kind of in a moment of tropical Hawaiian summer theme. All right. And just for those who present tonight, you don't have to wear a coat. All right. You can come up here, relax, and present tonight. So as a moment of peace tonight, will you please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. Thank you so much. If you're willing and able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. We'll move now to consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered routine to be enacted by one motion with the adoption of the consent agenda and without discussion. If a council member requests discussion of an item, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Motion to approve.
Motion, Killingsworth.
Second.
Second, Gray. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Agenda is passed here. We'll move now into presentations. And it's Parks and Recreation Month in the town of Apex, July 2024. And we're going to join together and present the proclamation down in front. And tonight we have received a proclamation, advisory commission members, looks like the entire Parks and Recreation Department and others. They're all here representing. So if y'all will please join me down.
Okay, this is a proclamation for Parks and Recreation Month 2024. Whereas the Town of Apex Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Department is a vital component of our community, and its Park and Recreation's programs serve as a means for residents to enjoy nature, participate in healthy activities, and socialize with one another. And
whereas spending time in green spaces and being physically active has been shown to improve mental health, reduce the risk of long-term health problems, and promote human development. And whereas parks and natural recreation areas provide many environmental benefits, such as improved water quality, stormwater management, improved air quality, vegetative buffers to development, and natural habitat for wildlife. And
Whereas Apex's recreation services include athletics for youth and adults, open gym, trails for walking, jogging, and biking, specialized recreation opportunities for residents with disabilities, and fishing in several of our town ponds. And
whereas Apex's public parks include Apex Community Park, Apex JC Park, Hunter Street Park, Kelly Road Park, Apex Nature Park, Salem Pond Park, and our awesome new addition, Pleasant Park.
Now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of July 2024 as Parks and Recreation Month in the town of Apex, and invite all residents to take advantage of the many opportunities the town offers to get active and enjoy the beautiful nature all around us in Apex. Signed this 25th day of June 2024. If you would please join me up, the entire Parks and Rec staff.
You're welcome.
This is why you guys are my Good picture, Randall.
Gotta take the shot.
3, 2, 1. Everybody cheer.
Give us a moment.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
All right, again, thank you, Parks and Rec, Cultural Resources, for all you do for the town of Apex and our residents. Appreciate it. We'll move now into setting of the regular meeting agenda, and we have everything presented. Are there any recommended changes before we approve?
So it's clear that some of these, I guess, are moved, and that's noted here. Okay.
Correct.
Just
Yep.
in case people are wondering what's going on.
Absolutely, yeah, I'll go into
Okay.
that once we get to that item.
Okay.
Anything else?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, motion approved again.
Second.
Second, Gray, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. We have a set agenda. We'll move now to a public forum. And this is an opportunity for community members to speak and present any recommendations or concerns to council members. And please follow the policy. And watch your time. And you have 3 minutes. And we'll start tonight with Beth Bland. So if you would, please come up. And give your name and address as well. Thank you.
Beth Bland, 3724 Friendship Road. I'm still around, haven't been here the last month or so, had senior graduation, lots of sports, but I'm back. Still around, I'm still wanting to discuss the Big Branch force main. Tom and I are advocating for it to get moved to the south side. You know, there's been lots of discussions with NCDOT, Duke Energy, and the town of Apex, Mike Deaton. I think everyone's on board with trying to get this to happen. It makes a lot of sense. And I think it should happen. So I also want to just do some bullet points just for our property so that you understand how it affects us. We have one of the smaller properties that the force main is going to go through. There's 5 acres. The force main will take an acre, 20%. It's going to render our pasture unusable. And it's going to take every tree out of the pasture that we have. So we have had an arborist come and evaluate the trees that are going to be coming down. And the appraiser from the town of Apex was out last week to look at it. And he had comments about the trees also, the size of them, the maturity of them. But we have 11 loblolly pines, 1 red oak, 2 red maples, 2 white oaks, a hickory tree, and there are 45 eastern red cedar that Tom planted when he built the house that are in the pasture. That'll all come down. And right now there's a red-headed woodpecker in there that lives, and there's numerous other birds. I can't tell you all the birds we have on our property. And we also have a pair of fawns that, you know, Mama Deer decided to be on our property for. All this is going to disturb the wildlife that's there. And I can't even tell you, we are right on not old US 1, but US 1, and the noise when these trees come down, it's just going to expose us even more. It will also expose us to Friendship Road and the traffic that's going on there. So there has not been one of you that have come out to the property to see it, to understand why we're fighting so hard to make this happen. The force main will also have air release valves on our property. So give me 30 seconds, and I just want to make sure that you understand our position and what this means to us and our livelihood and where we live and how we live. It's going to disrupt us greatly. So let's get this together and let's move it to the other side. It's possible. It makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glenn. Phil Welch.
My name is Phil Welch. I live at 1471 Big Leaf Loop in Apex, and I believe that everyone deserves a safe, affordable home. And I know this is a little bit out of order, but I wanted to express some appreciation for the revisions to the Apex Cares program. And specifically to the housing program staff for expanding the scope and the budget of the Apex Cares program. They split out specific sub-programs for urgent repairs, for removing architectural barriers to accommodate residents' accessibility needs and provide weatherization upgrades. They're now including owners of manufactured homes and rental units in specific instances. They're increasing the project budget limits to reflect the recent increases in construction costs. And importantly to me, they provided the proposed revisions to the Housing Advisory Board with plenty of time for us to take a look at that and have a good discussion at our June 4th meeting. So as a result, the board was able to discuss the revisions, relate them to other programs that the members were familiar with, decide whether any further tweaks might be needed, and then we voted unanimously to accept the revisions and send them to you all today for approval. So just to put a little context around this, much of the Housing Advisory Board's work focused during the last couple of years on providing incentives for builders to include affordable housing in their new developments. I believe preserving and improving our existing naturally occurring affordable homes are just as important. With the median prices of homes approaching $600,000 around here, it's more cost-effective to spend up to $40,000 to repair an existing naturally occurring affordable home than to spend upwards of $100,000 to acquire a developable lot or pay $400,000 or more to build a new home. I look forward to hearing how the revised Apex Cares program is doing an even more effective job at keeping our more vulnerable residents housed. And I thank you for approving the revisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. All right, that was the last speaker signed up tonight for our public forum. We'll close public forum and move now into public hearings. And just to note, public hearings 1 through 7 will be heard on Thursday, July 27th at 4:30 p.m. here in the council chambers. So we'll hear those items at this time. With that said, we'll move now to public hearing number 8, which is rezoning case number 24CZ05-2228 Kelly Road. Lauren Stoudemire.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
Get myself set up. All right, this is rezoning case 24CZ05 located at 2228 Kelly Road. The property is located in this general area south of Apex Barbecue Road. The subject property is approximately 4.067 acres and is located west of Kelly Road, north of Holland Road, and is surrounded by single-family residential land uses. The property contains an existing residential structure and is heavily vegetated along the southern portion of the property. The property is currently zoned residential agricultural, and the adjacent zonings are to the north, south, and east, residential agricultural, and to the west, rural residential and residential agricultural. The applicant is proposing to rezone to medium density conditional zoning. The 2045 land use map classification for the subject property is medium density residential, and therefore the rezoning is consistent with that land use classification. A letter of impact from Wake County Public School Systems was received for this rezoning and is included in the staff report packet. Wake County Public School Systems indicates that elementary, middle, and high school grade level within the current assignment area for the proposed rezoning development are anticipated to have insufficient capacity for future students. For the proposed rezoning development, transportation to schools outside of the current assignment area should be anticipated. School expansion or construction within the next 5 years may address concerns at the elementary and high school grade levels. The applicant conducted neighborhood meetings on February 29th and May 23rd, and the neighborhood meeting reports are attached. A full list of the proposed uses and zoning conditions can be found on page 2 of the staff report. The applicant is proposing uses such as church or place of worship, and residential uses permitted in medium density such as single family, duplex, townhouse, detached, and accessory apartment. Besides the architectural zoning conditions related to new non-residential and residential development, there are a few zoning conditions I'd like to point out. There shall be a maximum of 19 residential units on the property. Homeowner association covenants shall not restrict the construction of accessory dwelling units. If the residential uses are developed on the property, the subject shall include a stub street to this property along the west. And this slide goes more in depth about the transportation conditions, so I have them here as well. You can follow along. Zoning condition number 11 refers to the property if it's developed for residential uses. Then the driveway shall be right in, right out, and driveway shall be located at a distance of 250 feet from the intersection of Kelly Road and Holland Road, subject to the Town of Apex and NCDOT approval. You can see in on the aerial the rough estimates of where 250 feet are with the red X's. Zoning condition number 12 refers to if a site plan is submitted for the existing residential structure to be redeveloped as church or place of worship, then the site access may be from the existing driveway on Kelly Road and no road improvement shall be required, or from a new full movement driveway on Holland Road, subject to NCDOT approval of a driveway permit, and the existing driveway on Kelly Road shall be closed. Zoning condition number 13 refers to if the property is redeveloped and a site plan is submitted for a building of 10,000 square feet or greater in size. A full movement driveway shall be permitted on Holland Road, and development shall include the following: construction of a eastbound left turn lane on Holland Road, starting west of the proposed site driveway and extending to the Holland Road, Kelly Road intersection, with a 100-foot taper, 100-foot full width lane, and break for the proposed site driveway. The right-of-way dedication at the intersection of Holland Road and Kelly Road for a future 2x1 roundabout, subject to Town of Apex and NCDOT approval. Road frontage widening for the length of the property's Holland Road frontage, consistent with the 3-lane roadway section recommended by the Apex Transportation Plan. And roadway frontage widening for the length of the property's Kelly Road frontage, consistent with the 4-lane roadway section recommended by the Apex Transportation Plan. The Environmental Advisory Board held a pre-application meeting for this rezoning on May 16th, and the zoning conditions listed by the EAB are listed on page 5 of the staff report, along with the applicant's response to each and whether the applicant provided the conditions or not. Planning Board heard this rezoning at their June 10th public hearing and unanimously recommended approval. Planning staff recommends approval of rezoning case 24CZ05 22228 Kelly Road with conditions offered by the applicant. The 2045 land use map classifies the subject property as medium density residential. The proposed rezoning to medium density conditional zoning is consistent with that classification. And the proposed rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest because it will provide stricter environmental conditions than the UDO requires, architectural conditions to encourage development that is compatible with the surrounding development, and appropriate transportation improvements based on the type of future use. I'll be happy to answer any questions, and Russell's in the audience for any transportation related, and the applicant is here as well.
All right, thank you so much
Thank
for the
you.
presentation. Any questions for Ms. Stoudemire?
Ms. Stoudemire, I was wondering how the 10,000 square foot number was chosen, and isn't there an incentives based on this kind of, these conditions to build just under that amount for a new structure?
For the transportation condition,
Yeah.
I would ask Russell as well, because it's related to transportation, but was there a preference for the 10,000? But there was no incentive related to the square footage.
So can you repeat the question again so I can understand?
It seems like there'd be incentive for this, a new structure to be like 9,999 square feet in a new building to avoid some of these requirements. And that'd be bad, I think. So how's that number chosen, and is it safe to kind of assume that it's going to be well above that if they're going to build a new church?
One of the thresholds in the UDO for exemption from road frontage improvements deals with, it's 10,000 square feet is the cutoff in the UDO, so that's the number we used. Certainly the applicant could volunteer a smaller size, or we could have asked for a smaller size, but we put that in line with what's in the UDO.
Was there any consideration of kind of doing a stepwise thing where some of the improvements would be required at a certain square footage below 10,000, and this would be the max required?
We did not. I mean, it's not a PUD plan. It's just a straight conditional rezoning. So we as it is, it gets pretty complicated in terms of transportation conditions compared to what is actually being requested, just because of the access concerns being at the corner of a major intersection. You could do that, but it's a lot to ask for this type of rezoning at this stage. It may be something the applicant can answer if you're interested in some stepwise approach.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. Carpenter.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Matthew Carpenter with Parker Poe, 301 Fayetteville Street, here this evening on behalf of the applicant and the property owner, St. Paul American Coptic Orthodox Church. Several members of the church are also with me in the audience. The church is excited about this property. They purchased it last year, and the purpose of the rezoning is to allow them to adaptively reuse the existing structure for prayer meetings and other church offices. Right now, they have a temporary church location in Apex for Sunday services, but they're excited about having location that's their own and to continue to branch out and serve the community. And so I'll give a brief presentation, and then we're happy to answer any questions. The land use map designation here is medium density residential, which is a fairly straightforward designation. It obviously recommends medium density housing, townhomes, single family homes, and some neighborhood serving uses like churches. It doesn't recommend commercial uses or other more intense housing uses like apartments. And so that designation obviously informed the rezoning request. The existing rezoning here is residential agricultural. And we spent a lot of time at the beginning of the process sort of debating the right path to get the church use permitted on the property. It is a special use. Church is a special use in RA zoning. And so we could have gone that route and tried to get a special use permit. But the RA zoning district has a minimum lot size of 5 acres, and our side is 4 acres. So even if we went the special use permit route, we would have had a legally non-conforming lot. And so the desire really was to correct that legal non-conformity and to rezone the property. And so that's how we sort of settled on the rezoning to medium density residential. And it's allowed us to do a lot of those things in the conditions that also wouldn't have been a part of the quasi-judicial special use permit process. This is a picture of the home taken just a few days ago. At the planning board meeting, I had an older photo and it looked a lot worse. There was stuff growing up. But since the churches own it, they put a lot of time and effort into cleaning it up. And so they're just sort of waiting on the zoning process to conclude so they can really get started and use the property. You can see there are a lot of mature trees here, on all sides of the property. And so really the goal in that sort of first step of using the existing structure is to leave as many trees as possible, to use those as the wooded buffers. We obviously will have to comply with parking requirements, and there will be some changes, but hopefully we can leave a lot of those trees there. And then we've got 13 different zoning conditions. Lauren did a good job going through those. If you were to just open this case up and look at the conditions, you'd probably be kind of confused. But really what they do is account for the three different scenarios that Lauren discussed. The first of which is the adaptive reuse of the structure. And so you'll see language in there for conditions that just apply in that scenario. With minimal disturbances, we'll have to go through a minor site plan process to use the home for a church. And then the second scenario is sort of the dream scenario for the church. They keep growing. In 5 to 10 years, they're ready to build a permanent church building. And at that point, they would go through the full site plan review process. And these conditions account for that too. And then the third scenario is the residential redevelopment scenario. And we spent some time talking with staff about that too. Is it cleaner to come in and just not ask for residential uses? We thought with the land use map designation here of medium density, it made policy sense to go ahead and permit the uses and go through that process of adding conditions, architectural conditions, things like that that would apply if more homes were developed here. Now, obviously, it's not the church's intent at all to sell or develop it. I think they've gotten their fair share of development in the rezoning process. But those conditions will be there in place in case, years down the road something happened and another owner came along. The first condition is our permitted uses. There are no non-residential uses permitted, so just the church or place of worship, and then the different housing types. We put park and recreational facility in there too. We originally in the case had school as a permitted use. The only way that school would be part of this is if it were a part of the church. And, we talked with staff because of traffic. And then we talked to Mr. Rose, our adjacent neighbor, and we took that use out. So we took the school use out because, it doesn't really make sense here at the corner. Number two, the maximum 19 residential units. We wanted to sort of limit residential units on the property. I think just on the footprint, it's only 4 acres. And because of our access, I think 19 units would be really difficult to fit on the site. We have architectural conditions for residential and non-residential uses. Conditions 5, 6, and 7 are the EAB suggested conditions. Same for condition 8. Condition 9 is one staff recommends for most cases, sort of to go towards affordable housing initiatives of allowing ADUs. And then 10 is a cross-access requirement that would apply in the residential redevelopment scenario. And then 11, 12, and 13 took a lot of work, and we appreciate staff working through those with us. Because the site is so close to the intersection there are concerns with the different driveways. And so what those conditions do is outline the improvements in each scenario. And to your question, Councilmember Gant, the 10,000 square feet was sort of the minimum amount that we thought the church would build for a new church building. I think the house is around 2,600 square feet. And so it doesn't make much sense to build a building smaller than 10,000 square feet because they would theoretically grow out of it quickly, because it would be small. I think the initial plans they've looked at, they don't have a site plan, but they're thinking it'd be close to 12 to 17,000 square feet, depending on their membership at the time. And again, that's sort of long-term goals. It'll require a lot of fundraising efforts by the congregation and a lot of growth. So that's how we landed on that number, and that's the number that staff suggested too. And then a lot of the concerns, we spoke with Mr. Rose, our adjacent neighbor to the north, and really his biggest concern, understandably, is the buffer adjacent to his home in the third scenario where the church will be redeveloping a new building. Again, in the short term, we'll leave most of these trees and there will stay sort of a mature wooded buffer there. But when the grading is required for the new building and we come in with a site plan, there will be a smaller 20-foot type B buffer. And then a condition that we've worked through since planning board was to add a 6-foot fence in locations adjacent to the parking lot. And so I put together this fairly rudimentary graphic to show, what it could look like where, you have a parking lot, the UDO requires a continuous evergreen hedge, and then the 20-foot type B buffer, and then within that buffer, the 6-foot fence. And we did confirm in discussions with staff that if there are trees that are in the way of the fence, that we can move it slightly one way or the other to avoid trees. We obviously don't want to tear down an existing champion tree or a large tree to put in a 6-foot fence. And so we do have that flexibility. We don't have a tree survey yet. Like I said, we don't have a site plan. But I think this condition works and gives Mr. Rose some comfort that the parking lot lights and vehicle lights will be shielded from his view. And then, lighting was also an issue. And so I took a fairly lengthy look at the lighting standards in the UDO, which I think were fairly recently amended. And they're pretty detailed. I think, in other municipalities, I've added conditions that say what your UDO already says. So in looking at this, I think it really accomplishes anything that we could accomplish through adding a condition. You can see it goes as far even to specify lighting standards, the measurement of light at the property line. So those will obviously apply to this site because we'll be non-residential adjacent to existing residential. And then, with all these different conditions, with the medium density land use map designation, the transportation conditions we've worked through with staff, we do feel like it's in the public interest. It'll allow, the rezoning will allow the church to stay in Apex, to expand, and to continue reaching the community. And so we respectfully request your approval and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions for?
Yeah, I had one, Mr. Carpenter. You mentioned 3 scenarios. Maybe this is a question for Ms. Stottlemyre as well. Is there a scenario where there could be a mix of housing and a church or some kind of non-residential use?
I don't think theoretically it could happen, but I don't think practically it will happen because of the size of the site and the access considerations. With a church building of any size, there's going to be a lot of parking required, and I don't think you could fit the required parking for the church and have residential units on 4 acres.
Okay.
So.
I have one question, a point of clarification. The stop street, that will be to the property to the north, like in case of residential development?
No, it will be to the property to the west. So on the left side of your screen here. Okay. Yep.
Other questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and open up public hearing for this item. And we have one speaker tonight, Robert Rose. If you would please come up.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Robert Rose. My wife Debbie is here with me also. We live next door. I sent you all a letter about our objections to the proposal. If you all approve the fence, frankly, we got no objections anymore. All right. And if you don't approve the fence, then I guess I'm going to walk away and just be mad. Frankly, I've got an electric fence. I don't want people near it. Where they'll mostly be is in the parking lot, milling around, and that's why I want the fence. It probably will help with like driving car lights, but basically I'm just worried about the electric fence. So I really do have no objections. Neither one of us have any objections. We've worked with the church. They've removed the school use. They're going to keep the trees there as long as they don't build a church. So if we get a fence, seriously, I'm okay with this.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. All right, public hearing is closed for comment. It's back to council for discussion.
I have One clarification question. So the fence, is that along the entirety of the property line, or is that just the small piece that's kind of penciled in here?
Yeah, so it's the small piece that penciled in, and I worked on the language with staff today, and I've got it here to hand to staff, and it says, if site plans are filed for a building 10,000 square feet or greater, the owner shall construct an opaque fence with a minimum height of 6 feet in the buffer along the shared property line adjacent to the proposed parking lot. So it'll be for the length of the parking lot along Mr. Rose's property line.
Other discussion? Motion?
Just a point of clarification then, so the fence is part of the design in case of any development of that site. So just to address Mr. Rose's comments, right, that is part of the conditions that are being offered here.
That's right, yes.
Right, so.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion Killingsworth.
Second.
Second Gray. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Move now to public hearing 9. Rezoning case 24CZ08, 1341 0 and 1341 Perry Road, Shelley Mayo.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The next case in front of you is on Perry Road. The town is bringing rezoning for that parcel. It's in kind of the southeastern section of the town's jurisdiction. The site consists of 2 parcels totaling 50.5 acres that are located on the north side of US 1 and along both sides of Perry Road. Along the western side of the property line is an existing 100-foot Town of Apex utility and greenway easement. The site contains roughly 2.1 or so acres of cleared area on either side of Perry Road as it stands. That area is currently used by the town for material and equipment storage. And then the remaining 48.5-ish acres is mature forest with ponds and streams through it. We don't typically show the streams on the aerial images, but you should be able to see the blue lines on this one just because they do impact so much of the property. The current zoning district for the property is light industrial. The town is requesting to rezone that to light industrial conditional zoning to get some additional flexibility for the development by adding zoning conditions to the property. The 2045 land use map designates this as solid office employment to the west and striped office and industrial employment in the center and to the east. If this rezoning is approved, the proposed uses are not consistent with the portion that's designated as office employment. So if it's rezoned as approved, the land use map will be automatically amended to industrial employment in that section. That's why it goes from blue to purple. They're kind of very similar colors, so it's hard to tell. The applicant conducted neighborhood meetings on April 24th and May 21st. Those neighborhood meeting reports are in your packet. The town is proposing 6 uses, 3 of which would still require a special use permit in order to be constructed. That would be yard waste transfer station, which requires a special use permit, utility minor and government service, communication tower commercial, also a special use permit, communication tower public safety, also a special use permit, and greenway. In addition, the town is proposing 11 conditions to aid in getting some flexibility to develop the site. The order that I have in front of me is not exactly the order you have on your staff reports. I've kind of grouped them better for conversation and presentation, but they are the same conditions. There's not been any wording change. The first one is the yard waste piles shall be limited to 30 feet in height with a slope of no greater than 2 to 1. Any yard waste piles shall have a 25-foot setback from Zero Tingen Road, so the property to the north, and a 5-foot setback from the current right-of-way of Perry Road. No right-of-way improvements will be required along Perry Road, including the ones that would typically be required by the UDO. No buildings shall be required for any use with outdoor storage. Typically, that is a requirement. If we have any outdoor storage areas, there has to be a principal building in the area. Since this is just a transfer station, is our anticipated use, that condition's been added. And any existing lighting will be considered legally established non-conforming lighting and be allowed to remain until such time as the property is redeveloped. Basically, that just means the existing property will be allowed to remain as it stands for the moment. In addition, we have some buffer conditions. A variable width type A buffer of no less than 10 feet and no greater than 60 feet will be provided along the northern property line. Along the western property line, and a 30-foot type A buffer will be provided in addition to the existing 100-foot greenway and utility easement that the town has. So there'll be 130 feet separation from the edge of the property line. Along US 1, a 60-foot type A buffer will be provided, and no buffer will be required along Perry Road. In addition, resource conservation area within a perimeter buffer that's shown on a future minor or major site plan may be relocated through a site plan revision in order to accommodate future development with any adjoining properties. The Environmental Advisory Board met with the applicant on May 16th, and they recommended approval of the conditions as listed in the rezoning. They had no additional recommendations. Planning staff recommends approval of this case with the conditions offered by the town, and Planning Board heard this case at their meeting on June 10th and unanimously recommended approval. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Matt Weatherill with Public Works is also here to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Shelley. Any questions?
I do have one question. Not too long ago, we were working with the property owner to the north to do a potential land swap, making this property a little bit less pie-shaped and easier to develop. Am I correct to assume that those conversations have stalled?
I'm not aware of the status of those conversations. My understanding is that we need this facility now, and that even if the land swap continues forward, there would be another rezoning in the future to handle that, so that we can get started with meeting the town's needs as it stands. The director can answer the question, or the town manager.
It's my understanding those conversations are still ongoing.
Still ongoing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Just wanted a clarification.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none. All right, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing for this item, and no one signed up to speak, so it's closed. It's back to council for discussion, lead to a possible motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion Killingsworth, second again. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. We move now to new business. 1, rezoning case number 22, CZ 27, Center City Townhomes. And this is a reconsideration of vote.
All right, well, hello again.
Hello again.
All right, this is new business number 1 for rezoning case 22, CZ 27. As a reminder, these properties are located in this general area. And before I move forward, did you want me to do a quick overview of what you heard prior, and then, or just go into what's been added or revised since you've heard? I just want to give you that option. We can.
Good. Y'all good with just add it?
I'm good with this.
Okay.
Okay. And jump ahead a little bit. All right, since the rezoning was denied at the April 9th, 2024 Town Council meeting and was voted at the April 23rd, 2024 meeting to reconsider the vote, the applicant has submitted revisions to the rezoning conditions related to affordable housing and architecture. On this slide, for zoning condition number 3, it's related to affordable housing, and it was the yellow are the revisions, which you'll see in your staff report, that have been bolded or striked through, so you can follow along if you'd like. But the changes were if the property is developed for less than 30 townhome dwellings, at least 1, residential affordable unit. And the addition is if the property is redeveloped for 30 townhome dwellings, then there should be at least 2. So this portion and this portion were revised. And the sentence where it says the one affordable housing unit shall be identified on the master subdivision final plat, which may be amended from time to time, has been removed. And housing staff reviewed the modified affordable housing condition and is in support of the revision. And the second change is related to the residential architectural conditions and the addition to prohibit garages for residential units. That was added, as you can see in number 1. And then number 2, they added a maximum height for the townhome dwellings of 2 stories. And then the other changes related to the architectural zoning conditions were removing anything related to the garage doors related. And those were the only changes and revisions. And however, with the additional affordable housing condition revision, planning staff is still recommending denial of it. They didn't address our planning or transportation concerns. And those were the changes. And I'm happy to provide any other recaps of what you heard before.
Any questions for Ms. Staudenmaier? Okay, thank you. Mr. Barron.
Is there a slide you want me to?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group here on behalf of the applicant in this case, and I am really disappointed in each of you because I met all of you before this meeting and I wasn't told about the Hawaiian shirt night. I really would have seized the opportunity for Hawaiian shirt night. Kidding aside, it's good to see everybody. Excited to be back here. It has been a somewhat circuitous path for us to arrive where we are. As you all are aware, and I'm glad you dispensed with providing the background case. I think at this point we kind of know what this case is all about. We have been working on really 2 primary issues. First relates to access to the site, and second relates to housing affordability. With respect to access, my clients are here, Mike Fenari and Mark Block. We left the meetings with you all. We left the reconsideration vote and said, let's go figure out how we can ensure that when DOT expands or constructs the 1010 and Center Street widening program and puts in a median in this location, we can ensure that we will have access. And so they approached the adjacent owner about the possibility of acquiring an easement over their property. And unfortunately, they were told no. We explored the possibility of doing a temporary easement that would only occur when the construction of Center Street happened. But long story short, the answer was the owner's not willing to grant anything. And the reason that was offered was because that owner is talking to a potential purchaser or purchasers about having that site sold for development. The good news associated with that, and we can't guarantee when it's going to develop, we recognize that, so it's an incomplete answer associated with access. But the good news there is we have learned from Russell Dalton that if and when development of that site occurs, they're going to have to stub into our property. That stub will take traffic from our property out to Investment Boulevard. Again, we don't know when that will occur, but we are optimistic. Honestly, I was disappointed we didn't get an easement because I would have liked to have told you we have a condition saying we have an easement. It may be a better answer at the end of the day because it sounds like there may be movement that will resolve the access question as of day 1. I do want to remind you, we don't know when DOT is going to have their widening program done. I went back and reviewed the files. Back in 2018, that was a $93 million project, the 1010 road widening project, and those were in 2018 dollars. It's an expensive one. Who knows when and if it will be prioritized by DOT. But again, it's an incomplete answer. It's not the answer I was hoping to give you. It might actually be the best answer we could get in terms of the timing and when these things will come to fruition. With respect to affordability, as Lauren noted, we've added a second affordable unit when the 30th unit is developed on the site. Additionally, we added the condition prohibiting the garages as well as limiting height to 2 stories. And that's important because my client took it upon themselves to hire an appraiser and do a review of comps in the area of units that are selling at the 2-story level without garages. Those units average between 1,400 and 1,600 square feet, the comps they reviewed, and the sale prices of those in today's dollars was between $381,000 and $390,000. So sub $400,000, which is pretty remarkable, all things considered. If you look at what townhomes are selling for in Apex right now, they're significantly higher than that. I recognize that's not a condition of the case, but I did want you to know that the prohibiting the garages and maxing the height out at 2 stories naturally creates a smaller unit. The smaller unit in and of itself is going to reduce the ultimate sales price. And so we think this is a project we have continued to maintain. We still maintain this is a project that makes sense in this location. Residential on this site makes a lot of sense in this location. We think the information we got with respect to comps in the area in today's dollars is encouraging. And we believe that in addition to the condition associated with affordability, that the units that will be constructed on this site, consistent with this zoning, will be much more attainable for the typical family that's moving to Apex. And so with that, happy to answer any questions that you all may have, and we would respectfully request you all's approval of the case.
All right, thank you, Mr. Barron. Any questions? Hearing none.
All right.
Nice. Thank you. If I could get Mr. Dalton just to come up and explain that about the access over at Calvary Chapel.
Come up this way? Or?
Do we have an exhibit from the overall previous zoning? Yeah. Yeah, so what Mr. Barron was talking about is development of the future site, and I think this was one of the questions that came up at the previous meeting, that when that's developed, we do have requirements for cross-access with commercial development. So that would provide the ability to get them out to Investment Boulevard through that site if and when that develops. Since it's not proposed at this time, of course, we can't require it, and they've not been able to obtain it, but that does provide that opportunity in the future.
All right. Any questions from Mr. Dalton? Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
I do have a question for Mr. Barron, given that remark, right? So you mentioned earlier that the church is working with another potential buyer for that site and wasn't willing to grant the easement. But based on what Mr. Dalton just said, like that easement or that road connection needs to be created no matter what. So in some way or another, that land is encumbered, right? Has that been part of your conversation with the seller, right? That's like they have to do this, whether they sell the property outright or whoever the new property owner is will need to accommodate an easement. So one way or another, that easement will need to be established. So is that something that has been used to your benefit?
Yeah, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that whether we acquire the easement now or we don't, that easement, quote unquote, will exist because the town's ordinance operates that way. I wasn't involved in the discussions between my client and the seller relative to that, but I had relayed that information to my client. I trust that they shared that information as part of the effort to acquire it. But I believe that information has been communicated, that cross-access is going to be provided because, as Mr. Dalton notes, we are zoning the eastern portion of our site for commercial. And so because we've got the commercial next to commercial, that cross-access is required by the ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, we're back at discussion, and keeping in mind staff's recommendations that now look at rezoning. So any discussion on the item?
Let me get started. I appreciate the applicants going back and giving this giving another kick at the can here. Unfortunately, the answer is not much better than where we were 2 months ago when we first reviewed the site plan. my concerns still stand in terms of ingress and egress into the site, even in today's conditions, because that is, a part of Center Street that does back up, especially during rush hour traffic. People are still going to try to make left-hand turns out of that site, during those times. And even without the right in, right out condition, I think it creates a very dangerous situation. Just coming from an accident site where somebody pulled out in front of traffic and didn't end well. I just don't want to see us create more of those situations. So without that additional point of access, I still I'm stuck on this one. I don't think that's. I've changed my vote on that, and with that in mind and the staff's recommendation, I think I'm still not in favor of this project at this point in time. If that property to the east sells, right, and there's a follow-on conversation, I think we can take this up again. But given the current conditions, I don't think that this is the right place to build this development. I do like the development proposal. I want to be clear, like the smaller units that come in at a better price point. I do like that idea. Unfortunately, like the conditions of this site are such that I don't think that this is the right place or the right time for that development.
What I'll say is I agree with Councilman Zegerman. I value staff's input. I know they kind of go out on a limb sometimes to recommend denial, and I respect that and continue to agree because there's not been the changes to connectivity that I was very concerned with at the time and still am. And I guess thinking about our time here, especially me and Councilwoman Killingsworth, there have been times that we've denied zonings that maybe have been below our standards, or at least thought we could do better. And in some cases, they have been better when they've come back to us. And so, I think there's an opportunity cost here with more non-residential, better connectivity. If we consider holding off on this now and better understanding the property, if that ever develops to the east, what happens with that? If there could be a better mix of affordable housing, there could be a better mix of non-residential with residential together. I think who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what the future council is going to do? They could do a condition that says we're not going to require that connectivity to happen in the future if it's a conditional zoning in the future. I hope they wouldn't do that. I hope they wouldn't go along with that. But there's a way to get around the UDO in that case potentially. So the lack of knowledge I have in the future as far as that road, as far as the connectivity goes, means I still remain opposed to it. Thanks.
Well, I'll say that it's the inability to see the future, which is why I think this is still probably the best mix that we can have. I think in terms of affordable housing, it's the right location. It gives us options. It does increase the inventory. I think the changes that they've made will help ensure that it's still at, no kidding, what affordable housing really is. I think the connectivity aspect, I fully understand my colleagues' concerns on that one. I think that's a very real concern. I do think that if we can't predict the future, we're at least gaining some form of certainty, understanding what's going to be there now, and understanding that we've got access, just due to our UDO, that's going to allow it to make that connection to the stub. So I think it's not a perfect solution. I do think it's much better than many other projects that we've seen, but I do think it helps address one of the larger issues that we have here, which is, you look at our, the concerns of the citizens and residents that are here. They say affordable housing, affordable housing, affordable housing. And part of the solution for affordable housing happens to be increasing that inventory. And I think this mix for inventory in this location provides a good solution for that, or at least a way to keep stemming that. And I do think that it provides a little bit of certainty with regard to what will be there, as opposed to what could happen if this project gets delayed or future councils are dealing with this. I feel like we've got the ability to take some of that certainty in hand with this project. So I'm supportive of this.
Yeah, I want to agree with Councilmember Gray, because, you know, when we talk about affordability and we have the option to, you know, have a different form of housing stock available, which most of the time people come in here with 3-story houses or townhomes, garages in addition to that. And when we have that type of product, it's naturally going to be more expensive. So we have someone who's willing to say, okay, we're going to change the type of product to make this more naturally affordable than previous stock. And I think it's the right place for this. It happens to be in a place that, you know, is very close to one. And, you know, there's already a lot of this, you know, a lot of housing around this area. So I think this transition makes sense, and I'm going to support it.
Okay. For me, I think I voted against it last time. I had an issue with the access, and hearing Mr. Dalton talk about the ordinance, a little bit more convinced now that we do have something we can look forward to. I look at all the people that I get calls from in Apex and beyond talking about our lack of affordable units. We need inventory. We got to have it today. And the housing department supported it, you know, this action here. So for me, I'm convinced that this is the right move today. So I'm gonna, if it comes down to a vote, I'm in support of it.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, we have 2 and 2, and my vote is yes. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. All right, moving now to closed session.
Updates.
Oh, updates. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry, yes.
Blending in, right?
Thank you. I just have a few items. First, wanted to mention some events coming up here in July. We've got the Fireworks Frenzy on July 3rd. That's from 5 to 10, centered around Hunter Street Park and the activities and food vendors that will be out here on Hunter Street. And that will be followed on the 4th of July with our old-fashioned 4th of July in downtown. And of course, Town Hall will be closed on the 4th of July. And the last item I have, if you'll indulge me for 30 seconds, I just wanted to read an email that we received this week for our electric utilities department, who don't always get the kudos. They kind of just quietly work in the background. This came through our portal from a resident. A giant applause for the Apex Electric Utilities Department. On 6/23 in the early evening, a very small local outage occurred for our neighborhood. The technical team on call arrived within 15 minutes or less of being notified, assessed the damage, and a repair crew complete with crane had restored services in approximately 3 hours. It doesn't get any better than this. Sometimes the expense of utilities is the behind-the-scenes cost of a well-trained technical staff, an inventory of spare equipment on hand, managing logistics, and keeping the service up to date. This department served us well in our time of need. Many thanks. So I wanted to share that because they don't often get the kudos, but awesome job by our utilities.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bossberg. All right, good updates. All right, motion to go into closed session 1, 2, and 3.
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Yeah, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving to closed session.
Auntie?
Your formal night, that's it. Your
Formal night. Formal.
I think we're good. All right, any other business? Hearing none. All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Formal night, I like that.
Alan, I have the notes for